we are going to get started. We're expecting a few more people, so you're welcome to turn on your video if you want to share what you're working on. You can keep it off if you prefer, whatever you think. But this is the first time that we've done a program like this, so I want to say welcome to everybody. We're here at the Glen Ellen Public Library. It's after hours. My name is Amy Franco, and I work here at the library. Right now, we are celebrating all things hygge. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, I'm happy to say that as of last month, hygge has been added to the dictionary. It's a Danish word that refers to the quality of coziness and contentment. And since we can't be together right now, please watch our calendar for some great virtual programs coming up on this topic. Tonight, we are featuring GEPL's Cafe and our very own chef, Rob Bunnis. Rob has a Bachelor of Arts in Journalism from the University of Wisconsin at Whitewater and is an associate in Applied Science and Culinary Arts from College of DuPage. He spent the past 32 years writing for a myriad of industries ranging from healthcare to business consulting and construction to food service before joining the Glen Ellen Public Library as cafe supervisor in July 2020. Rob was also the editor-in-chief of two Chicago-based nationally distributed food service trade magazines, Chef Magazine and Chef Educator Today from 2003 to 2007. We're very, very lucky to have him here. He lives here in Glen Ellen with his wife, Kathy, of 20 years, 3 children, 2 cats, 1 dog, 1 fish, and 1 hamster. Very full house. So there are a number of us here to help you if you have any technical difficulties. Rachel, my colleague, will be here to monitor the chat. If you are experiencing technical difficulties, we encourage you to try restarting Zoom and rejoining this meeting using the same link or meeting ID. You can contact Rachel in the chat with any technical difficulties or questions for Rob. Just a note before I hand it over to Rob, he can't hear you, and we're going to be muting you just so that there's not too much background noise. So if you do have questions or you want to ask, say something to Rob, you want him to check in on something that you're working on, just put that in the chat. Rachel's going to be monitoring that and helping me kind of move things along in this program. So with that, I will hand it over to Rob.
Hey, everybody.
We're applauding here at the library.
Well, hello and welcome to the cafe kitchen at the Glen Ellen Public Library. And thank you for taking the time to cook and have some fun with us. I hope everybody is ready to have some fun and cook one of the most beloved comfort foods ever around. I want to give you just a little bit of history about the comfort food, the pot pie, because it does have quite a history. The basic pot pie is just crust, poultry, meat, vegetables, and a gravy. Pie because you can basically throw anything you want into it and make it yourself. Prior to the pot pie becoming popular in America in the late 1700s, the pot pie really was a lively dish at one time. According to the Smithsonian magazine, cooks in the Roman Empire era actually used to cook a live bird in the pot pie. So when it was served to the guests, they would cut the pie open and the bird would fly out. So I'm not sure if I would have much of an appetite after that, but I think the Romans did. Not sure. Pot pies are also known as sea pies. And this version typically includes pigeons, turkey, veal, and mutton. And the reason why they're called sea pies is because the name came from the pie being served on ships coming across back and forth to America and Europe and other places like that. But in 1951, the first frozen pot pie was created by C.A. Swanson Company. That's one of my favorite pot pies. I remember growing up with that in the 70s, little aluminum pan and a little pot pie in there. Used to eat that all the time. They still make them. Other versions of pot pies that people make sometimes have mashed potatoes, sweet mashed potatoes, cornbread, biscuits, or any type of topping that you really want to put onto it. You can make it yourself. But today, we're just going to make a standard pot pie, chicken pot pie. And basically, really, this recipe is a roadmap for you. And once you are on your own and another day, you can kind of veer off this map and make your own pot pie in any way you want by adding any type of vegetables you want. You could add any type of other protein. You could add a seafood. You could add beef. You could just make it a vegetable pot pie if you want. So there's no right or wrong as to what you want to do to it. But all it is just have fun, and it's food. So, you really can't go wrong. So who's ready to get cooking? I can't hear you.
Yeah,
but it looks like people are yelling.
Everybody's ready to get cooking.
Okay. But first, I want to just go over a couple safety tips on cooking, because the last thing that you want in the kitchen is an accident. So first off, I don't know if everybody does, but you have a cutting board that we'll be using. And a lot of times cutting boards, depending on what type of surface you have at home, if you have like a marble or a granite countertop and you put on just like a wooden board or a polyurethane board, it kind of slips around. So the last thing you want is when you're cutting your board kind of moving around. So one safety tip is you can just get like paper towel and just get it wet a little bit with some water. You just open it up. This is one of the first things I learned when I was in culinary school. They taught us. And you just put the paper towel underneath the board, and you put the board on top. And then it kind of like just makes a little bit of suction to it. And it's safe then. Secondly, it's good to wash your hands. You're going to be playing with food, so you want some clean hands. Just to let you know, when we work here in the cafe, I always wear gloves no matter what I'm doing, particularly with ready-to-eat food like salad, lunch meats, anything that isn't going to be cooked is referred to as a ready-to-eat food. So we don't want to touch that. However, if food is going to be cooked in the oven or on the stove top and it reaches a certain level, gloves aren't really necessary, because you're then the process of killing any foodborne bacteria that might be there. However, you do want clean hands. You don't want dirt underneath your nails or chipping polish or anything like that. And just to let you know, I'm not wearing a mask today. I always wear a mask here at the library. I'm just not wearing one today because I want everyone to hear me. But everyone else behind the camera here, my executive producer, the IT specialist, and our marketing guru are all wearing masks, and we're all social distancing. So just want to make everyone aware of that. Third thing I want to talk about is knife safety, on how to hold a knife when you're cutting. A lot of people hold a knife like this with their finger on the blade, and then they're cutting like this. Well, this is really unsafe because you don't have a lot of stability. You don't have a lot of stability to keep the blade safe. It just kind of wobbles around. So if you're cutting, it could be, whoop, you might cut yourself. Other times, a lot of people will hold the knife like a club, and then they're chopping down. Well, you really can't get any good motion on your blade because you actually have to chop, and that's not safe either. So the best way to hold the knife is to take, if I'm right-handed, if you're left-handed, you do the opposite. You take your thumb and you put it on one side of the blade like this. And then you take your finger and you just grasp it right there, right at the where the blade and the handle meet. So this way you have some real good hold on the knife, and you're not going to wobble around as much. Also, when you're cutting, you don't want to chop down like that. That's really bad for the blade. It'll dull it. And it's also an opportunity for to get your finger injured. So what you want to do, you really want to keep the front of the blade on the board and chopping like this. When I was in culinary school, we used to basically get punished if we didn't do this. And if we would chop like this, we had to do extra chores during class, which was not fun. So we learned pretty quick. So let's get cooking now. First thing, hopefully everyone has preheated your oven to 375 degrees with the rack in the middle. And at this time, you could also put the cookie sheet on the bottom rack, which will catch any drippings once you put your pot pie in. So hopefully everyone has done that. If not, please turn your oven on to 375. I have to get a drink of water. Okay, so I am using a cast iron skillet today. I don't have a burner here in the kitchen. I have a hot plate. So my cast iron skillet really retains heat. for a long time. If you guys, whatever you're cooking with is fine. Any type of pan. I'm just using a cast iron. You can have non-stick, stainless steel, whatever you have is fine. So the first thing we're going to cut up is our onion. So here's just a regular old onion. I'm going to show you guys a very easy way to get an even diced onion that you can do within 1 minute. So the first thing you want to do is to hold the onion up. Here are the two ends. You want to cut along right down the center. You put hand over and you chop down and you drag through. So now you have two pieces. So you have to get rid of the outer skin. One thing I do when I cook at home is I have a bucket next to me that I kind of put on my garbage. I have a garbage can right here, but you know, if you can, you could throw your scraps in here. So what you want to do for the onion is you just want to cut off one edge. And what you always want to do when you cut, you use your knuckles as a guide to cut. And you always keep your thumb behind your two fingers. If you have this thumb out here, you will catch it someday and you'll lose the tip of your finger. So you always have your thumb behind and use your knuckles as a guide. So what you want to do is you want to cut off just one side of the onion. And then you want to just peel off the first layer or the outer skin. You still have this other side on here, which is kind of serving as your anchor. So I'll show you what that means in a minute. You keep peeling off, okay? Make sure you get any loose pieces out of the way. You don't want that in your food. So what you want to do with your onion is you take your palm of your hand and you put it on top of the onion. Don't keep your fingers down, but keep them up. And you start at the bottom and you just make a slice in and you make another slice up and then you make another slice up. Make about 3 slices in the size of an onion. And you could do it to the other side as well. You know, if the bigger onion, you know, you can maybe do 4. Next, you take the onion then. Again, you kind of grab the onion with your fingers like this, and you just want to make some slices down. Not all the way through, but just to the right before the tip of the onion. Couple pieces come off, that's fine. Now what you do is, again, you're using your knuckles, get your thumb behind your fingers, and you just rock it back and forth. Until you come to a little bit like this. Now you can keep this end and you can use it for breakfast tomorrow morning when you make scrambled eggs. Just finely chop this piece up and you got a little extra scrap, or you can keep this if you make your own chicken stock. And here's the next onion. You just want to slowly slice down. And you have all your onions. Now you see they're all nicely diced very quickly. They all look pretty much the same. Okay. So there we have our onions diced up. Next, we're going to work on our celery. So we said for the recipe, 3 stalks of celery. I know this looks like a lot of vegetables, but honestly, after it starts to cook down, it's not. It works out just fine. So make sure your celery is washed. I've already washed mine. You want to take the tip off just because it's kind of gnarly looking, kind of brown. Take the other side off. You know, if you wanted to, you could keep this too for stock. If you make chicken stock, it's great. So it's a pretty big piece of celery. So I always like to cut it down the middle to make it a little bit smaller. That's one thing when you eat food, you don't want something so big when you're putting it in your mouth that it's like, you know, you got like this. You got little bite-sized pieces, and that all the pieces are somewhat similar in size. The celery, the carrots that we're going to cut up next, and the onion. So for the celery, work with as many pieces as you can. If you only can work with one, that's fine. If you work with 4, that's fine. But, just go with 2. So lay the celery down so the inside is on the table. And the same thing you do here. You got your fingers back, your thumb under the side, and you're just holding it. And you are rocking your knife back and forth. That's why the knife is shaped like this, so it rocks. That's another good thing about knives is you have to make sure your knives are sharp. A dull knife can lead to injury. So you just want to make sure your knives are sharp. So you can chop this up, and every once in a while you just kind of slide your celery over into the pile. You take the next 2 and chop. So hopefully, does everybody look like they're chopping?
Everybody looks like they're chopping.
All right.
They're watching your cooking lesson as well. As much as I love to cook, I didn't know that that's how you cut an onion. So I'm learning something today too.
You just have to be careful when you get down to the ends, because there's nothing really much for your finger to hang on to.
I bet we all wish we could chop that fast. I guess that's why you go to culinary school.
Once you get going, the thing is that you can chop and look up at the same time. It's like riding a bike with, no handle, without your hands on the handlebars. So there, you got your celery and your onions chopped up. Now, then we're going to our carrots. Now, where are the carrots? Here they are. Now, the reason I decided to go with the ready-to-eat carrots, one, they're basically all uniform in shape and size. And, it saved me some time in peeling. So, this recipe is super easy to make without me talking about it so much. If you're doing it on your own, you can get it probably done faster. So you take your carrots. Again, it's a little bit harder to hold these, but you just want to slice these up as well. Now, the real interesting thing about a pot pie is, we are doing a lot of work here on chopping up vegetables, but if you wanted to, you could use frozen vegetables and save all the time. And, the grocery store, you could get frozen vegetables of anything you want. Okra, mixed vegetables. You can get, like I got, here's a country blend. Corn, carrots, and green beans. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to eat in your pot pie is up to you. You can make it your own. You could put cauliflower, broccoli, whatever. So everyone should be cutting their carrots.
We have a lot of people who look like they're chopping.
Good. How's Miles doing?
Miles, how you doing? Give me a thumbs up.
Okay. So we have all our carrots chopped up, and give me 1 second here. I'm back. Okay. This is a great tool to have if anybody doesn't have one. It's a pastry board, it's a scooper, whatever you might want to call it. Pastry board's helper out. So we're going to use this to help put our vegetables in. But first, we want to get our pan a little warm. So is everyone done chopping?
Raise your hand if you're still chopping. We got one person still chopping.
Okay.
Looks like everybody is kind of moving on, though. So, Rob, where do you buy one of those tools?
This, you could get it at Bed Bath & Beyond would have these. Your hardware store might have it. Some of them come in plastic.
I think I have one that's plastic. I think I got it at Pampered Chef. One of those Pampered Chef parties.
I mean, we got them from a food service store, but yeah, you could get them like at the hardware store, or Bed Bath & Beyond, or some Target, Walmart has them. And you know, because when we make pastries, this is really good to pick up any flour that we want to off the board instead of using a wet rag, which then it turns into kind of like a slurry. So this will help pick it up. So what we want to do next is we want to put our oil and our butter in our pan. So what did I say? I like, look at my recipe here. I said like 3 tablespoons of olive oil. So 3 tablespoons of olive oil.
And a tablespoon of butter.
Now, you don't have to use butter if you don't want. I like to. I just think it adds a little bit more flavor to the dish. If you use just butter, the butter would burn in the pan without the oil. If you just want to go with oil, that's fine. Again, it's your recipe, so you can do what you want. So we're warming this up.
Starting to smell really good in here.
See that? Okay, so you can take your vegetables now and put them in. So now I'm using this because it just helps pick it up. It's easy. I mean, you could even use your knife if you want to. So everybody get their vegetables in, kind of give them a little bit of a stir there. Okay, I have to get a spoon, which I forgot.
I see lots of busy chefs.
So next, we'll let this sit for a while and start cooking. We want to get our garlic. Now, there's different ways you can get garlic. You can get garlic that's peeled, which makes it really easy. I think we said 2 cloves. Or you can get, you know, a head of garlic like this. For some people who get this, that's cool. A lot of people struggle with getting this thing open. You know, you just have to peel it back. You sit to crack it open, and if you want, you just give it some smacks, and it opens up just fine, like this. So we have 1 piece of garlic there. I'll show you what to do. Sometimes people wonder how you get the garlic out of the husk. Well, what you can do is you want to cut off the end. And then you put the garlic clove underneath the blade of the knife and you just give it a whack. Doesn't have to be too hard. And it pops right out. All right. So you have one clove there, and we'll use 1 of the peeled clove. So here's this clove. You just want to take off this piece. This piece will never cook and it'll get really hard. This one, you want to give it another little whack. And what we want to do is now we want this to be a fine dice, because if it stays like this, it's going to be a large piece of garlic and it doesn't taste very good. So you first off just want to give it a rough chop with your knife and keep your hand on the front of the blade, because if you don't, it's going to be bouncing around. So you can guide it there and you kind of go back and forth.
Quick question,
Hey, Rob, we have a question.
Okay.
Someone would like to know if they are supposed to add the peas and potatoes to the skillet right now.
Do what?
Add the peas and potatoes to the skillet right now.
Oh, right now? No, not right now, because if you did that, they would get really overcooked, and you want them to stay kind of whole. So we don't want to brown the peas or the potatoes. They would get kind of mushy, too mushy. So you want to add them at the very end, and they'll stay whole while we bake them. So we have a rough chop here. Now, this is still too big of a garlic. So what we can do is, and I learned this trick from a chef. His name is Fritz Schonenschmidt. I'm not making that up.
It's quite a name.
And he's a German chef. He's a wonderful guy. I've cooked with him numerous times. What you do is you take some salt and you add it to the pile of garlic. And you start dragging your knife back and forth on it. Can you see that?
Yep, we
Is that
can
good?
see. We got a close up right now.
So you just keep going back and forth. And what happens is the salt is acting as an abrasive. You just keep on pushing it down. Get back, chop. If you want, you clean your blade off. Always go again or with going forward to the blade. Never go up because you will slice your finger. So you just keep on working it into a paste. I suppose you could even buy garlic in this format already if you want minced garlic. So, but you know, part of the fun of cooking is actually doing all the work when you cook. I mean, that's why I do it. It's a lot of fun. So here's this nice garlic now. It's all kind of pasty. So this can go into the pan. Now you have to remember that we added salt to the garlic already. So when we add salt later, we don't want to add as much that may not be needed. We will taste it to see how it's going. So we want to cook the garlic, onions, and celery until the onions are translucent, which means, you know, they're kind of are translucent and opaque. You almost see through them. They kind of start to lose their color. Does anybody know what celery, carrots, and onion is called?
We've got one person's hand raised. Let me see, Marty. I'll unmute you.
It's the Trinity.
The Trinity is what.
Oh, close, but not right.
No?
Anybody
What
else
is
want to
it?
venture a guess? Okay, Matt's got his hand raised. Matt, let me unmute you.
Mirepoix.
Mirepoix.
Mirepoix, that's right.
Mirepoix, you win the prize.
Right, Mirepoix is right. Trinity is the New Orleans equivalent of it, which includes peppers.
Ah, so you were
We'll have to
very
discuss
close.
that later, Marty. All right, so you can just give this a stir. Hopefully everyone is, onions, everything's starting to cook, get a little softer. How's everybody doing?
Looks like everybody's doing really good. I'm seeing thumbs up.
Okay, awesome. So the next step is we want to sprinkle, is that in the way? The flour on top of the vegetables. Now what the flour is going to do, when you make a roux, it's called R-O-U-X. It's butter and flour mixed together, and it kind of makes this paste, which is more of like a thickening agent. So we're doing that at this point to coat all the vegetables. And there's butter in here, and the oil. You can use butter or oil, doesn't matter. We have both. So it's going to make a thickening agent with our vegetables. And we want to add it at this point instead of later down the road when there's liquid in here, because by adding it now, the flour will get cooked instead of staying in its like raw form. So it'll taste a little bit nutty, and it won't taste, like I said, raw. So hopefully everyone's looking good here. So you can take your flour and just sprinkle it around. And that was a half a cup of flour. Now you want to stir this to incorporate in your pan. And since I'm on a hot plate here, my temperature goes down. If anyone who's cooking on a gas stove, yours probably will stay up a little bit higher. But it'll come together no matter what.
I'm seeing lots of stirring happening at Ranges all over Glen Ellen.
Okay. Let that come together for a minute.
So, you haven't other than the garlic, we haven't seasoned anything yet.
Well, we have our seasoning of rubbed sage and thyme.
Ah, okay. So it's coming up.
Yes, so we could add it. We could have added it a while ago, which I may have overlooked that step, but we can add that now. So take your thyme. If you have fresh thyme, that's fine. Dried thyme is fine. And you can sprinkle it in here. And your rubbed sage. This is another area where you can add any other spices that you want. You know, if you want to add rosemary or basil, you don't have to add anything if you don't want.
I put a little rosemary in mine when I made it last week. It was so good. I always try to cook with fresh herbs too. Delicious.
You want to put that together. Okay. So is everybody's dish coming together where the flour's kind of melding together and kind of disappearing a little bit?
How are we doing? I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. Lots and lots of thumbs up.
Okay. So the next step, we want to start adding our liquid. I have chicken stock because it's a regular chicken pot pie. But again, if you're making a beef pot pie, you could use beef stock. If you're making a seafood pot pie, you could use seafood stock, vegetable stock. If you're using just a vegetable one, I also go for one that is unsalted. I like to control the salt level in my food. We have added salt, but the broth is always salted broth is really high in sodium. So I tend to go with unsalted broth. And this is just the one I got today, Swanson, but anyone is fine. You can also buy them in very small containers, like 8.5 ounces. So we're going to add our broth first, which is 1.5 cups. Okay. You just give it a little stir around. And then you want to add your half and half, which was 1/2 cup. And you want to incorporate this.
So Rob, when I made this last week, I got really worried at this stage that I had added too much liquid.
It does. You're right. You know, it does look like a lot of liquid, but the amount of flour that we added to this, it'll thicken up more than you think. So, you know, that's another thing about a pot pie. Some people like pot pies that are very wet, if you want to say, and have a lot of gravy. Some people like pot pies that are more put together and thick and not a lot of gravy. So if you're one that likes a lot of gravy in your pot pie, reduce the amount of flour if you want, because this will also continue to thicken up when we put it into the oven. So you should almost automatically see the pot pie starting to thicken up from all of the flour we have in there. You can try to let it come to a boil. We'll just give that a few minutes. If it doesn't, I don't know if you can see this, but can they see inside the pot?
Yeah, they can.
Okay,
They can.
see, it's starting to bubble, and look how it's thickening up, like almost right
Looks really
away.
good. I just want to take a big bite of it.
Right away, it's starting to thicken up. You don't want it to start to burn, so, and stirring it will actually help it thicken up a little bit faster. do that. So see, there you go, coming together.
Get a close up of that. Looks really good.
Okay.
Is everyone thickening? I'm seeing thumbs up.
Yeah, good. All right. So now we're going to add our chicken and potatoes and our peas. Now here you can actually turn the heat off. I mean, once it gets to your desired thickness, you can turn it off.
So Rob, when I made this last week, I realized at this stage that my skillet was not big enough for all of these things. And so what I did was put it in like a like a big glass mixing bowl
Oh yeah.
to incorporate it.
Yeah, that's a good point, Amy. I mean, if your pan isn't big enough to add the rest of the ingredients, feel free to transfer it to a mixing bowl, and then you can mix it in that way without having everything overflow and make a mess. So the potatoes, again, another shortcut: diced potatoes out of a can. And if you want to take the extra step, you can just get regular potatoes, boil them, cool them off, and then dice them into little cubes. I said 14 ounces. This is 14 and a half ounces. That's what they come in the can. So, you could use the whole can, or if you don't want to use the whole can, you could keep the potatoes and use them for breakfast tomorrow to make some hash browns with the onions that you're using with your eggs. So take your potatoes, just add them in. Chicken, about 4 cups. And this was a rotisserie chicken that I got from a local grocer, which is very flavorful. You could use chicken breasts, cook your own. If you do get a full chicken, just make sure when you're taking it apart that you don't get any bones in it. So the person eating then won't get a bone to chew on. So you just put your chicken in.
Whoops.
There we go. There's the blooper.
There's the blooper. We'll have Joey edit that out when we
Listen, Julia Child had bloopers a lot.
hey, it's not cooking if you don't make one mistake. I don't know. I'm always making mistakes when I'm cooking.
And you
So it
want to
makes
add
you a
some
better cook.
peas if you want. No, these are still frozen. I said about a cup of peas. If you want, you can just mix it all up. My pan is at capacity.
I don't know about everybody else, but it's smelling so good in here. I hope it's like that for you too. I'm seeing lots of nods.
All right. So we have this mixed up, nice. So what we're going to do now, well, first off, all you need to do, you can taste it. If you have a spoon, you want to give it a taste, check the seasoning on it. I think I use a little bit more salt. So, whatever your level is, some salt, and it's kosher salt is what I like to use, and some fresh cracked pepper. Give it a stir around. Now this, this is really thick now, it's perfect. This is the way I like mine. The Swanson pies used to be like really soupy. They were good back then for a kid. Not sure I would eat one now, but
I'm all about the crust though, when it's too soupy and the crust gets, I don't know, kind of soggy, it's no good.
All right. So there we have that. Okay, so we can let this sit here for a minute off the heat, because what we want to do now is we want to focus on our pastry puff and our pie. So I just got a deep dish pie crust. because I want to try to make this as easy as possible to make. So this is by Pillsbury. It's really nice. And a deep dish is good because if you get a regular pie crust, it's like half the size and everything would overflow then. So you have your pie crust, and then you want to get your puff pastry.
So Rob, I have a question for you. Are
Yeah.
all pie crusts created equal? Like if you, is there like a brand that you really like, or is the refrigerated better than the frozen? Talk
That's
to
a
us
good
about
question.
pie crust.
You know, you can go a different routes. I mean, all pie crusts are basically the same. I mean, butter and flour, and you know, some have shortening in it, salt and pepper. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. So you can buy a pie crust in the tin pan already, or you can buy a pie crust that's rolled, folded, and then you could put it in your own pie pan.
That's what I like to do because I want everybody to know that I made it.
There you go.
You know, so I put it in my grandma's pie plate so that everybody knows it's not a store-bought pie.
And then you could also, if you do go the route of a pie crust that you can put in your own pie plate, you can change it up and use different serving vessels. You know, you could just use a Pyrex bowl. You could use an old time Corel, which this was my mom's actually. Or if you're having more of a fancy dinner, you could use a nice, you know, kind of bowl here. This was my mom's too, which I think my mom's watching. She might be recognizing that. You can put it in there.
Rob, we have a question about lemon juice. Is that something you might add?
Yes. We do have lemon juice. I'm glad you guys are here. So where's my knife? So we wanted to add some, this is something if you want to do, you don't have to do it. I add a little bit of lemon juice to the mix. It brightens it up. It's really subtle, but you can squeeze in some lemon juice. I think I put down 1 tablespoon.
I noticed it when I made it the other day. It was really fresh.
So just
tasting.
1 tablespoon of lemon juice. So that'll just brighten it up a little bit. So again, you can get a pre-made pie crust, or you can get this pie crust. Pastry sheets, puff pastry sheets, Pepperidge Farms. These are all in the frozen sections. So what we want to do is we want to roll this out very gently. So we're going to, and these have been out and they're nicely thawed. I'm going to take a little flour and just put it on my board here so it won't get stuck too bad. Pull it over. Unfold it. It's got some paper in it. Get your rolling pin and just roll it out a little bit. Just a little bit, because we're going to trim these sides off. So next, you want to scoop your chicken pot pie mixture into the shell. Now there will be some left over because this is a good portion, and I have something I'll show you on how to make some individual pot pies, which are really cool for maybe like a dinner party that you're going to have. You know what's really great about pot pies is you can make them ahead of time and freeze them. Keep them in your freezer, and then come home, you know, from work or wherever. Preheat your oven and then bake them
So you would assemble the pie and not bake it and
Yeah.
freeze it.
Yeah, you can freeze it, and it might take a little bit longer frozen than what I said to do, 45 to 55 minutes, I believe. And you can just pop it in the oven and just cook it maybe for an hour, 15, hour and a half or so until everything is browned.
I did not know that. Did anybody else know that? Lots of people shaking their head, or yeah, shaking their heads.
Pot pies are also great to make for people. Say you have a friend, family who just had a baby, and they don't feel like cooking. So you make them a pot pie, and you could find out what they like to eat. You could make a pot pie especially for them, and bring it over to them. And all they have to do is pop it in the oven. So now we're going to put the pastry puff on top. So an easy way to do this, because if you pick this up, it's going to get really, it's just going to stretch. So take your rolling pin, and you can roll up your dough on it. You just push this up, and then you just roll it over it. Okay, so now it's on top. Look at that.
That's a pretty cool trick.
So you have that. So now you want to find the edges, and you want to start crimping. You go around. You just make a real light crimp for right now, because what we want to do then is you could use your knife or a pair of scissors to trim off the edges. You just want to go around, and don't throw these scraps away of the puff pastry, especially if you make your own puff pastry. We make our own puff pastry here once in a while, and it takes anywhere between 4 to 5 hours to make really good puff pastry, and you don't want to waste any puff pastry because of all the time you put into it. So what I do with any leftover puff pastry is make cinnamon, little mini cinnamon rolls with them, which you can roll them now, the cinnamon rolls, and save them for your breakfast tomorrow with your potatoes and your onions that you've saved. So you're actually getting 2 meals out of this deal.
That sounds delicious. I think I'm going to come over to your house for breakfast tomorrow, Rob.
So now you've cut off and you've crimped it a little bit. Now you want to crimp a little bit harder. So what I do is I take my 2 fingers and I pinch and I go around. So I try to give it as a little bit of a fancy design. I mean, it's not too fancy, but at least it comes up. And you're trying to crimp it to, the bottom of this pre-made pie shell. There is going to be some separation because it's puff pastry with the final product. But just go around like that. Right? And then what you want to do, you want to take your knife and you want to make some slits. I usually make 4 slits. And what this is going to do is release some steam. Because if you didn't, it would just stay in there and it could blow up like a balloon. Plus, this makes it look a little fancy. So you have your slits like that. So here's my puff pastry. I'll show you what to do in a minute with these guys. And then the last thing is we had 1 egg and some cream. Where's my egg? There it is. So you want to take your egg, you want to crack it in. Make sure you get no shells in there like I did. That's okay, get it out. And then you put in your milk.
That's the half.
The half and half.
Half and half, the separated, divided half and half.
Now the way that I was taught to whip up an egg and is to use a fork, especially when you're making scrambled eggs or a quiche or something. Whipping the egg around like this really incorporates a lot of air into the egg, And then when you make the scrambled eggs, they'll be really puffy. So you see this now, it's not really stringy. I mean, it's not goopy together. It's stringy a little bit, but it's not that bad. So then you're going to paint the top of the chicken pot pie with the egg wash. And what this is going to do, it's just going to make it super brown and really, really nice. If you didn't, it's still going to look nice, but it'd be kind of pale. So you just want to really get the egg all over it. You get it down into the creases, down on the ends. And you can even get it down onto the sides. So you go like that. And that's your chicken pot pie for this part. Now you put it in the preheated oven that's on the middle rack at 375 degrees. You have that pan underneath there, just in case something does drip. So it'll go into the pan, not your oven, which will make a mess then. And so I'm going to put this in the oven, and through the magic of TV, it's going to be baking in about 5 minutes here, because we have this magic oven. But you'll have it in your oven for 45 to 55 minutes. I would check it at the 30-minute mark. Depending on, everyone's oven is different, temperatures vary and so forth. So the puff pastry could get too brown too quickly in some ovens. And if it does, you can just get a piece of foil and put it on top, and then let it bake for the rest of the time. So I'm going to get this off stage right. And then I come back. So what it should look like is this. I baked this one earlier, so it's settled a little bit, but when you first get it out of the oven, I mean, it's really just like, whoo, really pretty looking. And so there's the separation of the puff pastry with the pre-made crust. And so when you cut into it, and I suppose I could do that for you guys if you want. Does anybody want to see that?
Yeah, we want
Oh,
to
you
see
want to eat
it.
it?
I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Saya, I hope that's right, is wondering if you could just repeat how long you put it in the oven for.
The total cook time is 45 to 55 minutes. And again, it depends on oven. Ovens vary in temperatures. So put it in the oven at 375 degrees preheated for 30 minutes. So check it after 30 minutes. At the 30-minute mark, the puff pastry should be brown, and it should be puffed up already. If it's starting to get too brown, you can put some foil over it and then let it continue cooking from there. So let's give it a try. So we'll cut into
A
it.
moment of truth.
Let me get my thing over here.
Looks like a work of art.
So it's really, it's a thick pie, chicken pot pie. And, it's a meal. And along with this, you could serve, a little salad to go along with it. And, if you want to, a great Chardonnay would go perfect with this, or a nice lager beer if you're a beer drinker, or any sort of drink. Glass of water would be good too. So that's the pie. And so the other, that's what it kind of looks like inside. Everybody sees that. So let me just show you real quick what we could do with this extra pie dough and extra meat here. So what you can do with this pie dough is you can have some fun with it. Oops, blooper 2.
We'll have Joey edit that out too.
What you can do with this stuff is you can just cut it up into little pieces. It doesn't really matter what shape or what it actually looks like. So you have that. I have to go back into my magic room here. I got my cinnamon sugar. Okay. So what you want to do is you just want to take some cinnamon sugar and you just dump a bunch on it. Just coat it. And then just roll them up. You could cut this one in half. Just that same knife.
It'll be a chickeny cinnamon roll.
That one will be.
I'd still eat it.
Just cut these, roll them up. And then you can put these on a small sheet pan or a plate. Put them in the fridge overnight. And then in the morning, when you're making your eggs, you have your oven going, brush them with another egg wash, sprinkle some more cinnamon sugar on them, put them in the oven for, 10 or 15 minutes. And then you'll have some little cinnamon bites with your eggs and potatoes. So that's something fun to do. So here's another trick you can do with the extra chicken pot pie. You can take some butter, if you have these little ramekins, and butter around them, butter around it. Here, first we have to do this. Let me clean this up real quick here, guys. Because these are making individual chicken pot pies is really great for a dinner party. So hopefully, did everyone put their pot pie into the oven?
Is everybody baking? I'm seeing nods and thumbs up. Does it smell really good at home? I bet it does.
Yeah, okay. So what you want to do is you can get another puff pastry sheet. And you take these things. I'm going to go back into my magic room for a second. You get a pizza cutter, or you can just put this down. And you want to cut around the puff pastry, not right on the edge, because you want it to hang over. So you take a pizza cutter, and you cut it out. I'm going to save that for more cinnamon rolls. So you butter the inside of the ramekin. And then you fill up ramekin with the chicken mixture. And then you place this on top. And you just kind of seal the edge, and you let it hang over. We're not going to cut this one off. And again, you can brush it. Make it all nice and brown. And then this can go into the oven. Now this, you can cut a hole in this one as well, but you don't have to. But you can, you can make one little slit right in the, or a hole in the middle like that. And you put this in the oven for like 30 minutes. I mean, it's not a very big one. There's no dough underneath the cook. You're just wanting this to puff up. And so you have these individual chicken pot pies. Sometimes they're great for appetizers or just little fun meals, a little luncheon you might be having, which would be great. So that's really cool there. So that's the chicken pot pie. We talked about using different bowls if you want to. You could use individual ramekins. Another thing is you can make a pot pie without a bottom crust. We mentioned that. And the chicken pot pie is really up for your own interpretation. Again, use whatever vegetables you want, whatever protein or no protein, and you can have fun with it. So does anybody have any questions?
So just a reminder, Rob can't hear you. So if you do have questions, please type them in the chat and Rachel would be happy to ask them of Rob on your behalf. I have a question, Rob. What do you got coming up in the cafe in the next few weeks?
Oh boy, we have a lot of things coming on. Right now, we are doing a program. It's called Salads from Around the World. It started 2 weeks ago. This coming Monday, the 1st, will be our 3rd week. And each week, we are having a brand new salad. And that salad will be on the menu for the entire week. And the first one was an Asian medley salad with grilled shrimp. This past week, we had a Middle Eastern salad with roasted sweet potatoes with a Middle Eastern spice mix, goat cheese, and a tahini dressing. This coming week, we're having the Italian salad, which is fresh mozzarella, fresh tomatoes, and fresh basil with a balsamic and vinegar dressing. And then there'll be 3 more salads after that. And if you're in the program, you'll get a discount on the 6th salad, depending on which week you started to participate. Also, we have a program called Signature, the Chef's Signature Series, where the cafe recreates recipes from well-known chefs from around the country and the world. This week, we are going to be celebrating Chef Eric Rippert from Le Bourdin from New York City. And for those of you who don't know, Chef Eric is a French chef. He really specializes in seafood. He has been awarded 4 stars from the New York Times, and he's a 3-star Michelin chef. And he's one of the top 50 restaurants in the world. So on Monday, we're going to kick it off. We're going to have a special meal on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday, we're going to have individual phyllo dough pizzas. So there's going to be 6 layers of phyllo dough. And then they're going to be topped with a tomato confit, basil, and then your choice of pepperoni or Italian sausage, or you can just have the basil. And then on Wednesday, we are going to have beef bourguignon and carrots. And then on Friday, we're going to have rice and shrimp pilaf Indian style. All 3 meals will be served between 11:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. In addition to those 3 meals, we'll be having a soup all week long and all day long. It's the Tuscan bean soup. And so all 3 of these recipes are Chef Eric's, and we're recreating them throughout the entire week. In addition to that, we will continue to have all of our regular baked goods, our scones. This week, we're going to have a blue cheese and fig is one of the scones. We're going to have our cookies, our cakes. We're going to have another a French silk is a regular staple now on the menu. I think we've sold more than 20 French silk pies over the past few weeks, which is just crazy. And we're also having a bundt carrot cake with a cream cheese filling and a cream cheese frosting. And we have all of our 9 sandwiches, toasted and cold, bakery items, our tomato basil soup, and our hot and cold beverages that we serve. Espressos, cappuccinos, macchiatos, you name it, we got it. We do it all. So I hope to see you guys. And if anybody has any questions, please call the cafe. We have a phone right here at the cafe, and that number is 630-790-6772. You can call there, ask what the specials are. Our marketing department does put our specials out every week on the Glen Ellen Public Library Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram. And or you can call the library. You can call us, make an order, and we can also deliver curbside. You can just pull up one of our 15-minute spots.
Perfect. Well, I hope everybody had fun. I don't see any more questions in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us for our very first ever cook along. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please let us know. Comment on our Facebook page, send us an email. We'd love to see your pictures. You can send them to reference@gepl.org. We love seeing pictures of things that people are doing in the community, and I hope everybody enjoys their chicken pot pie tonight.